you mentioned 1941 a couple of times, and there's a picture of John Belushi right next to Spielberg on there. And it was interesting because it flopped here, but over in Europe, people seem to regard it as a pretty good movie. What did he learn from that film? Because after that, he ended up doing Raiders and E.T. But what did he learn from that experience from 1941? Because up to that point, he had Jaws, Close Encounters. He was like the wonder kid, like nothing could go wrong, and then he hit a speed bump.
I think, he realized, and it's, I don't want to put words in his mouth because the book is an interview book, so you get to hear from him exactly what he thinks about the film. But from my perspective, I would say that what I think he learned was potentially, the work you need to do on the script, because I don't think ultimately he gravitated to that particular script. And it's hard to tell, it's hard to tell what he learned, because cinematically I think the film is perfect, and I think that's why Europeans really like it, because we recognize the cinema and the auteur and what he's trying to do as opposed to the end result. um it's flawed, and I like flawed films. In fact, some of my favorite movies are very flawed, because I think it's showing that the artist is working with clay, and it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be a little bump, something that's not perfect. Uh, um, so I think you learn something from each time you do something, each time you make a film, even if it's like a masterpiece. That's why most directors I've interviewed do not look back at their films, even the very successful films they've made, because they always see what they weren't able to do. He talks very candidly about Close Encounters, and how he was forced to release the film faster than he wanted to, and was not able to release the first time around in 1977 the film that really represented his vision. um, he says that Raiders is really the only movie he can watch and doesn't feel like he is the director. He can watch it and enjoy it for what it is. So I think that there is a real journey for filmmakers and any artist with their work. So I'm not really answering your question, but um, I think that every time you do something, you learn and you hopefully grow, and it's always a bit of there's always a little bit of a luck factor that makes the film like be a masterpiece or fail or be discovered later. I do think that today, and certainly when I met Stephen 30 years ago, there was, even in America, this cult fascination with 1941 that was happening, whereas at the time it was made, there was no such thing. So every art form sort of has an evolution, and sometimes movies that are hugely successful when they come out, 10 years later they're completely unwatchable. I'm sure that's happened to you and your viewers. I've rewatched movies that I've loved, and I'm like, I can't believe I like that. So it's an interesting thing, that happens with with art in general, not just movies.